It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group. Back again. All right. Another podcast. Say hello, podcasters. Introduce yourselves to the folks at home.
Hi, I'm El Stahura.
Hi, I'm Chad Jetner.
I'm Peter Lawrence.
And I'm Kyle Bacher, and today we're going to talk about demos, demoing stuff, whether it's
specifically
software.
About the demo as it pertains to one of the events, maybe in an agile workflow, right? We have an event at the end of it called a sprint demo, and we'll talk about how to do those, or we'll talk about how I do those. And then other general demo stuff.
Excellent. And we have a special guest, Licky
Otis.
the Wonder Dog. Otis.
Otis is going to be playing the role of the customer or product owner that we're presenting our demo to.
Yeah.
Tightly focused.
So in general, what are some rules of thumb for demoing that kind of cut across all different types of demos?
Well, before that, like when do you actually do it, right? So as you're building out a product, if you're building out a software product, we tend to do those ideally once a sprint. You show off to the product owner or whoever, this is what we built, this is how far we got, and this is more importantly, this is what we didn't get to. It's an opportunity to have a conversation with them about everything that happened in the sprint and show them real live working software. For me, like that means I push to stage, I push to some non-dev environment, a stage environment. We show it off there. I lead it. I ask a ton of questions. And that's that. And then we do a bigger one. Like we've been doing like sprint demos, and then we do these massive demos every few sprints around just kind of like a milestone, right? So a collection of sprints kind of geared towards one common goal. And we invite like all of our stakeholders back for that. So you're demoing not just to maybe a product owner, but you're demoing to, VPs and other
So
folks.
you don't have your regular stakeholders in your sprint demos?
I don't have sponsors in regular sprint demos as a rule currently, because it's just a time thing, right? It's too frequent. It just becomes a cumbersome event then. I put together a more formal demo of for sponsorship and for everybody else that has, a script, that has statistics, that has, working software that we show off, but also like a really cool story around everything.
So I've heard a few tips in there. The story, the one you ended on, like telling a story, I think is critical, because that's what people are going to respond to, and versus just technical demonstration. So I think that's one thing that resonates with me. Your audience was a mix. So how deep do you go when you have executives and people like that? So around the idea of knowing your audience, how deep does that go, Chad?
Oh, I go low level. Like we go, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing that might be like integration type work, right? And it's hard to understand, but we just walk through it. Here's what this is. Here's why it's important. Here's what this enables. And here's why this might look strange, and here's the reason for all the wackiness around it. I don't necessarily leave out low-level technical details for an audience of VPs, but I will leave out jargon, right? Like talk about, connectivity protocols or, stuff that they probably don't care about. But I will talk about, system A is talking to system B. This is our response time. This is why this is hard. This is why it's, might have been easier. And then especially the things that you don't get to, you don't necessarily demo things that don't exist, but it's your opportunity to explain to that level why you either underestimated, overestimated, and why they're seeing what they're seeing and the challenges that you faced getting it there.
So you're doing low level at a high level, like you're doing it, kind of trying to translate it into layman's terms. This gizmo's talking to this thing, and
yeah, you can gauge it though. Like it's not. I don't start in a different language, but I might end there, right? Like if I'm not seeing anything resonate with somebody, then I'll change it up. One of the things that we've done at the end of demos, at the end of our big demos, I have a slide that is just project statistics, right? And it's meaningless measures of progress for the most part. Like, here's how many stories we completed. Here's how many lines of code we've written, or even better yet, here's how many we deleted, and it's kind of a silly measure of how far you've come. But then we have another slide that says, here's the running tally for our happy hour bill. We have, I have this really nice woman on the project, and I track since the inception, how many times did she swear, right? It's at 1.25 because once she said, "Oh, F," I'm like, that's 25% of the intended swear words, so I'm going to count it. We count a lot of silly things on that slide, and I left it off once because I thought I didn't know what people thought of it, and then one of the VPs literally called it out and said, "Hey, where's that other slide?" Like I come to these things for that slide. I mean the demo, but yes, but that slide is always kind of neat. So
I've got a question about, because you're talking about your roll up demos to the larger group and VPs and stuff, and you still cover the things that you didn't get to in that. A little bit, yeah. Those feel more sprintish, but you still cover it in the bigger.
It's a way to keep the project really, really honest, right? And it's as a dev team, or an engineering team, it's your opportunity to communicate directly with people and make sure like everybody understands where you guys are. And if something was promised that we didn't deliver, you can explain why. And sometimes it's just, we ran out of time. We didn't get to it, or it was more complex than we estimated, or we found this landmine. But it really is your opportunity to talk to those folks and tell them a true and accurate status of where the engineering team is at any given point in time.
So on your project, you've been going on this project for over a year. Is that right?
Almost 2 now.
Almost 2 years. When was the first VP demo? When did you have something that you could show them? Because this was sort of a greenfield thing, right?
Yeah, we waited. It was probably a year.
Okay.
Right. We had a long discovery phase. We had a long kind of ramp up, and we didn't. Well, I don't want to say that. It was less than a year.
But you've done product owner demos well before that, right?
We've shown it off to our product owner. Yeah, at that level, sure. But like showing everybody else, I was skittish to show like 9 months of work equates to this, right? And
Here's
that was
all the
me,
things that don't work in our product right now that
right.
we promised.
And we would always get the same answer. Like, they want to see these two things. When can I see that? I don't know, 6 months, 9 months. I can pretty accurately predict what you'll be able to see in the next month,
Right.
but I can't go much further out than that accurately.
It's hard to know what
give you a
landmines are out there,
roadmap.
right?
Yeah. I know I want to drive from New York to LA, and I can tell you that we're in, I don't know, Iowa right now. I don't foresee any issue getting to
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Well, you're going backwards.
The other way.
Yeah.
Came from Wisconsin. Maybe you had to go back to Wisconsin. You forgot your cheese sticks.
Exactly.
Yeah. So timing is a good thing. Now, Elle, you kind of work on in the data world, integration, moving stuff around.
I'm in the shadows.
So, like, how much demoing is there even to do in your world?
Yeah, I would say I historically have played two different roles. One is because I'm working with the data on the back end, there are many times when I have supported a product demo where, like Chad mentioned, I'm going to get something ready in a non-dev environment. That non-dev environment needs to have the data to support the use cases we're going to be demonstrating. So I will either be there in a supporting capacity just to make sure that the product functions the way we're anticipating it to function, or for individual integrations, especially if we're talking about automating processes that have been manual. So, every day I go to this URL and I write down some like who entered the building this week, and then I have a spreadsheet that I paste those values into. Like, if I'm automating that process, I will do a demo with the person who historically has owned that integration to show them, here's how I am recreating that process in an automated fashion. Here's how it will scale. Here's how it will handle errors, so that maybe something went wrong last night, and here's how it recovered. So I will do I think more specific and focused product demos than I think what Chad is describing. But then I'll help with the larger ones as well. One thing I kind of want to bring up is, and we were talking about this yesterday, that product demo and just a generic presentation share a lot of tips between the two. There is a lot of overlap between how to give a good presentation versus how to give a good product demo. One of the things that I find is different about, or a little bit more different about, a product demo than a presentation is that it is a lot more of a dialogue than a one-sided sharing of information. That a product demo, you're hopefully getting feedback as you're showing the technology from your stakeholder. They're asking questions. You're able to check in with them to say, is this what you want? Or this is where we've gotten this sprint. Here is where we're going next, but are we going on the right path? There's a lot more asking than just telling, I found in a product demo than compared to a regular presentation. But Peter, have you found that to be?
Yeah, you're kind of asking, like, are we on the right track and are we going the right direction, versus a presentation? You're like, this is the information. This is what I got.
Yeah.
The demo, you're like, this is what we did in the last sprint, and we think we did it totally awesome. Are we right or are we wrong?
Yeah.
So,
that it's more interactive, and it's really taking into account just agile principles of like, okay, here is this iteration. Let's make sure that we're taking into account adjustments for our next iteration. And yeah.
Exactly. Sure. Yeah, totally.
Chad, was there any other kind kind of sprint agile based demoing tips or things you wanted to share?
I think don't talk too much if you can avoid it. Helps. Like reserve that for reserve a lot of time for questions, right? And be prepared to answer them, especially if you didn't deliver on a promise or on an estimate. I don't call them promises. Like the estimates are just educated guesses for the most part. And if you missed an educated guess, be able to explain why that is.
You're more educated now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got a slightly better education. Yeah. We do on our team, we do like weekly tech demos just with the dev team. Like this is a standing meeting we have on Fridays where all the devs get together. It's part like mini announcements, but then it's like, what cool pattern did you stumble upon this week? Did you do something, did you color outside the lines? And if so, can you explain why? Sometimes we reserve those for complex code reviews, that sort of thing.
So kind of implementation details. Here's the cool thing that I did, and this is why I did it this way.
Yeah. Those are actually super fun for me. Like that is, for me, that is one of the highlights of my week usually, right? Like somebody will have a question about, hey, why are we using Gradle? How can you do this here, right? It's an opportunity to mentor junior devs. It's an opportunity to mentor senior developers that are resistant to new ideas.
Do you assign people, or do you draw straws, or?
No, we really just make it. It's pretty democratic. I will call if something happened, like, oh, we implemented a new pattern for showing PDFs in the application, right? If that sort of thing happened, then yeah, like I might ask that person specific questions about it. But outside of that, it's really kind of an open thing. Like if you've got something to show, now's your time to show off if you want.
Right.
Which
So
really
That makes sense.
Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
I've demoed like proof of concepts, things like that, and I found that testing and prep are critical, kind of rehearsal, that kind of stuff. Before you go in, is that as necessary as you're working along these projects, Chad? Because you're kind of working with it every day, and like you're always kind of up to speed. So you probably don't have to spend that time prepping and testing. And
I don't do a ton of prep. We'll do kind of an informal code freeze right before a demo if it's one of our bigger ones, but with the product owner, I don't do much prep. I mean, I have in my head, here's what went into the sprint, here's what I thought was really cool. And here's what you've been asking us for a long time now. So I can speak pretty intelligently there without a whole lot of prep. And if the app craps out, then so be it. That's, we're showing off a living, breathing thing. So it's fresh. Like we don't wait for QA to get through things before we demo them, right? We don't let that whole process prevent us from showing off features that we know to work to our stakeholders or to our product owners. Maybe not the best idea, but it's working for us right now.
Yeah.
So do you?
Oh, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to ask, Chad, when you're demoing new things, when you either don't need as much prep time or don't have as much prep time, are there other people who are involved in the product demo besides you and the stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, I will usually let the team know what's going to go into it, right? And we're all in the room now, or we're all on the call. And I'll call on specific, like I'll let a developer talk about something they did in front of stakeholders for a little bit if it needs clarification or whatever. I have our BA help out a lot. Like when I'm walking through something, I understand the tech stack really, 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 really well, and I understand the business pretty good. But for more further color commentary, I'll let other people talk. So I run through it, and my demos are all like, it's 4 slides, right? Here's where we were last time. Here's where we are today. Here's where we're going, and here's some statistics.
Do you kind of use that opportunity, or as an opportunity to kind of spotlight some of the people that did something great?
Yeah, constantly. I mean, I talk more about the dev team during the demos than I do the product usually. This is what Greg worked on. This is what Baby J worked on. And then that's hilarious because some people, what do you mean Baby J? Well, hang on a second, I got a picture. So yeah, I try to make it, I mean, if you can, make it very conversational, the whole thing. I can't stand some of these scripted, uneventful, like just cardboard demos that you get from folks that you don't really have an opportunity to ask questions about. You don't have an opportunity. I mean, it's just, I'm going to barrel through this as fast as I can and get the heck out. Your life will be a lot easier if your key stakeholders trust you and your team, and trust that, you guys know. It's also the demos. I mean, for what we do, consultants, it's a demo of the product, but it's also kind of a demo of the consulting company and your ability to understand what their business is all about and what their business needs really are. So that's not really the point of these demos typically, but it's a side effect that I've seen happen more than once, is that when you do a demo like this and when you can illustrate that exactly what this problem domain is and show maybe not immediate expertise, but show that you're actually learning it more and more and more, every demo, that's pretty huge for us.
Yeah, and I also think it benefits the customer, puts them at ease, when you show your work and things like that. Peter, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to talk about sort of along with Chad's, sort of have some slides. I think slides are good fun for a demo, just to either throw a picture of a garbage truck or whatever you want on there, or something else, right? And then one thing that we've done in some of our demos, because some things just don't lend themselves, like we made this more secure. And
yeah,
it's like, well, I can't show you the before or the after because it just is. But and so we'll have sort of an honorable mention kind of thing, like, oh, these were the things also that we did with our time, but they're not really conducive to show and tell, so we'll just tell.
Yeah, and framing how that work was worthwhile. But like,
exactly.
Okay, we don't like, just if I can't show you the thing so you can see it, how does doing X result in good thing Y?
And technical debt is another one of those that's always good to call out, right? Like we got rid of this technical debt that was going to be problematic or we were finding to be in our way. We got it out of our way and we've moved on. So
for some of those lower level things, like during a demo, we had an integration, right? Real-time integration with another thing. And it's hard to, there's no UI for it, right? There's no flashy thing. So I just did a live tail of, I increased the log to be incredibly verbose. I did a live tail of that. And I let during the demo those an integration message flow through, and then it just went nuts, like kind of like the Matrix. And I explained to these people, okay, so this is what this is. And as we're looking at this, you probably won't be able to see a single thing, but I mean, you've tailed a log before, like live tailed a log before. You can kind of tell, like we look for patterns. We look for, oh, that was an error right there. And I did that and I thought it would not, really work. And they loved it. They're like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. For those listeners at home, live tail means the tail command is looking at the end of the file. Live means actively keep looking at the end of the file and showing the new things that show up.
Peter,
live
that was
tail
for
sounds
me.
Really cool.
That wasn't just for the people at home. Yeah. So in general, like whatever you're demoing, reading the room is key. You can invite certain people and think like if they're going to be engaged or not, or kind of what the challenges and questions are, but you really don't know until you get them in the room and you can see if they're engaged or not, asking questions, things like that,
and know who they are too. Like know who's in the thing. It's harder to read a room when they're on Teams and they don't have their cameras on.
I hate demo via Teams.
Yeah, but if I don't hear anything, like I'll specifically call out, whatever title, like, hey, Paul, is this making sense to you? Right? Like, do you understand what we're doing here? And that gets them into it a little bit. If you call out, don't just say, does anybody have any questions? Ask specific people. Do you know what's going on here? This is, a thing that you asked for, 2 months ago. This is now that thing realized. Does that actually make sense? And did we get it right, or are we way off base? So find out.
And are we close? And or have we hit it, right?
Yeah.
Can we tweak it a little bit further now that you've seen it to make it do a little bit better?
Is this your card?
Exactly.
And then they say no, and you get sad.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you had a demo go horribly bad, off the rails?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Tell us about your failure, Al. We want to hear all about it.
Ultimately it came down to the live demo was reliant on a database that had a blocking transaction that just meant that nothing ran because everything was waiting in a line for this first thing that wasn't mine to get out of the way. So that was fun. And it's hard if that's like one of the first times something has gone wrong. It's never fun if you're, showing a UI and then the UI decide I'm not going to render that today.
Right.
Like, no, it was rendering 10 minutes ago. I try to remember that I have a chance to follow up. So it's not like this is set in stone what the product's going to look like forever. So I try to use that as an opportunity to either talk about, okay, here's something that's going wrong. Either this is an item that will be in our next iteration, or let's talk through how we can debug how our development team can debug this to help if something goes wrong in production to have things recover quickly. With that particular, the demo with the blocking transaction, I just ended up whiteboarding it. I just drew like, here's what's happening. So it's always good to just be comfortable with, I think to Chad's point, if you really know the information, you have the agility to present it in different ways relatively easily. Like Chad, you're not tied to the slides so that if Prezi or PowerPoint goes down for whatever reason because your computer's restarting, like you can talk to what was going to be covered in a different way.
Yeah, and sometimes like application failures in the middle of a demo are hilarious.
Totally.
As long as you don't get uptight about them like Bill Gates does, you're fine, right? That could be that's also great.
And that's where the it's really is an opportunity to build trust or to just demonstrate if you have trust between the development team and the stakeholders. Because if they're freaking out and no, now you've wasted all of our time and money, like chances are they're not going to say that, because all of us have experienced a technical issue, whether we're in IT or not.
I sure hope so.
Using that as another conversation point or a point of humor or a point of just connection and understanding helps make it a lot better.
A little bit of humility in the demo,
oh, for
right?
sure. Yes.
Yeah. I was doing a presentation and recording it, and probably like 30 people in the room, and Ben Story knocked over the video camera halfway through. It kind of made the presentation. It kind of like it got everybody loosened up and laughing and
yeah, that could totally be like a built-in way of doing, Chad, what you mentioned with, hey Paul, is this what you wanted? Like it can sometimes jolt people out of a zoned stupor. Like oh, stasis, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So have you ever had like demos in a really high pressure situation?
Yeah, I mean,
aren't they all?
Yeah, right.
Kind of, yeah.
Well,
higher pressure situations are when you don't know your audience, right? So as if you're just on a new gig, right, and you are just learning your audience, and you don't really know what their sore spots are yet. You don't know that you shouldn't swear. You don't know that you shouldn't, whatever. Those are more high pressure than, oh, you're solving this massive problem for a massive company, and if you screw it up, bad things happen. That doesn't really affect me as much anymore. But not knowing who the audience is and what their preference is kind of a bigger thing for me.
Takes a while.
Mine was, you've got 2 days to build a prototype of something you've never done and don't know how it works. And then you're going to have a group of people you've never met come in and watch you demo the prototype and then decide if they want you to build it for them or not.
Good grief.
And thinking you got it nailed, and then the cardinal rule of not like user proofing it and sufficiently practicing, just no time in there. You mistype one email address, then it doesn't work. Then you have your internal meltdown.
Yep.
For like a minute, and then everybody's looking at you while you're kind of wondering what to do or what went wrong. Then you fix it and you go, oh, I mistyped the email. Yeah, I put this in manually because, I didn't have time to do it the other way. So I recovered, but it was not a fun moment.
Those are hard. And same with live demos. You're like, I've ran through the same script beforehand because I've learned enough to at least practice one run through to make sure I can get to the end of my demo without having it blow up 3 or 4 times on the way. And then you're doing that exact same thing, and somebody's running a long-running transaction that blocks you, or someone has mystically changed the staging data in between the time that you ran it and the time that you are giving your demo, and you forgot to tell everybody hands off staging because I need to have data that I'm used to, rather than, oh, well, that wasn't there. Okay, that wasn't there before, but I'm sure this will be fine.
The other thing, Chad, I'm really glad you brought up if you don't know your audience. And I think related to that, the other thing that makes demos more stressful for me is if there is a plan to have part of the product demo be a discussion about something that should not be part of the product demo conversation. Like if you're going into a product demo and the stakeholders are about to find out that we got nothing done this sprint, like, let's not save that for the demo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just trying. So I think product demos, you want to keep open-ended to allow lots of time for questions, but you do want to keep it focused to the goals of a product demo. Like it's not an open forum for any questions about IT and productivity and staffing and politics. And that's when it gets
feature discussion.
Awful.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then to extend that idea of knowing your audience, it's knowing kind of what story they want you to tell when they're like, what are they wanting out of this thing? What goals did they bring to the room?
Yeah. And that's why I wonder, Kyle, kind of with your example of, you have 2 days to create a prototype. Those instructions can really run the risk of setting you up to fail because you don't know get a prototype. Cool. What does that mean? How many pages do we need to have? What functionalities? Like, who are the users? What's the goal?
Yeah.
And you can try to get, like, in that situation, that's where, and I'm sure you would do this now, Kyle, and like that's where I would start to just use the product demo as, well, I made this. Let's walk through it, and I'm going to tease out the requirements that I should have gotten before this prototype started. But it's
that's like taking that time to go, well, you gave me 2 days to do something that, like, tell the story of your kind of impossible situation. So take this with a grain of salt. Let's allow for some forgiveness here of if this thing doesn't work right, kind of maybe telling that story. I was put in a position where I was set up to fail. And then there was a little bit of failure, but not complete failure, because I showed that we could do what they wanted us to do. But that didn't stop people from being angry that happened.
Sure.
The same people that set me up to fail. And that's just part of it. Like, you're gonna struggle at times, and there's gonna be things like that where you do a demo and you miss something. Somebody in the room, has a problem with it. They might challenge you on the spot. It's just kind of part of doing it. Like, demoing look and feel, demoing design, things like that. I found that, I would try to, because it's like you're not finished yet. So it's like, okay, we want you to look at this, but ignore these other elements because we're not there yet. That doesn't really work.
and that's almost where the wireframes come in handy for that kind of thing, right? Because it takes away. Why is it blue? Well, what color did you want it to be? You didn't. Nobody specified color.
Why did you use a stock photo of an adorable puppy? Like, no, I want to focus on that now.
Some of it gets so weird. I mean, math problems are hard, but like, why did you round to 2 decimal points instead of 1 instead of known? And I'm like, can we, like, getting people to worry about the right things is one of the points of a demo in my world, right?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
If you're building something incredibly hard, let's not get pedantic about a font size. Let's get pedantic about, are we solving this problem correctly? Are we building up the right inputs to, accurately predict whatever result we're going at? It drives me nuts when folks are like, yes, you're going to deliver a polished product at the end of it, but there are steps to get there. And I get the impression that it's more common than I thought that, the agile process and the way we build software these days is occasionally incompatible with the way some businesses think about building a thing, right? Or an offer, a
Right.
service, whatever. Iterative development doesn't seem to resonate well with a lot of folks. And for me, that's part of when I do a demo, it's not just the product, but the process that got us here, right? What you're seeing on the screen is this today. This is our first cut at this. It's your opportunity to provide feedback about the data and tell us, did we get it right? Are we directionally correct on how we're solving the problem? Not,
Right.
do you want sans or sans serif? Like,
Yeah.
we'll
I
figure
want to
that
get
out
back
later.
to this font size because I've had that happen. Like we're
Yep.
talking about layout, we're talking about color. Font selection is like we haven't bought the font or picked the font yet, so don't worry about the fonts. And then 15 minutes later, you get the font question, and you just have to expect that. And
I almost feel like you need a separate slide in the presentation. Hold on a sec. Tab, 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 tab. We're not talking about fonts. Remember that. And then tab, 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 tab back.
One other thing.
That's more of a kind of a design demos are more of a presentation because it's look and feel.
One other thing I've found that's been really helpful is, if possible, use data that looks as close to production as possible when you're doing a demo, because folks will focus on the wrong thing.
Really get hung up on wrong data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like if you're doing, building out a contact card for the VP of whatever, and he's in the room and he's like, well, that's not my address. Or, that's not the point, right?
Yep.
Does the screen look right? Does it set up the next screen appropriately? Can you visualize the flow from this to that to that?
Or worse, why is that my house?
Yeah, the best way to help them along that thought process is to use their own data in some way, shape, or form to explain their own problem back to them. That's been huge for us, is that we've noticed that a lot. Like, hey, this doesn't look like, it looks like you got this completely wrong. Those numbers don't look right at all. Okay, all right, you got us. We mocked up some data for this.
Mm-hmm.
And now we spend a little bit more time getting that better, because we know that it's more along the lines of what we were saying earlier. Like, what does your audience care about? We found out early that's a thing that they really seem to care about, is that our mocked data set doesn't reflect the reality of their situation.
And it's frustrating when you're having to mock up data and spend, 20, 25 minutes to mock up meaningful data when all you're showing off is 3 decimal points now instead of 2 or something like that, right? But
exactly.
But if it's the wrong data, they'll focus on that and not care.
Because sometimes I think that's just for people who aren't in development in software teams. Like that's their entry into tech. Like that's the part I care about. Part of the product demo is guiding people who aren't directly on your team necessarily into how do I shift your mindset so that you're paying attention to the questions that I currently have.
Right.
We can narrow focus another time, but how do I get you to look at this product to see the high level changes so that you can tell me what's working and what isn't?
Yeah. As a developer, I know that data that's in there came from who cares where.
Yeah.
And it's just data. And I can put any number I want in there, but as a user, they just focus on it.
As much as you like comic books, sci-fi, whatever, if you have account names, whatever, stuff like that, just know that not everybody's going to know how cool that is, that those were all super friends. And
I was very happy when I saw at a demo somebody had a login of Taserface. Like, well, someone just saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Yeah.
So, have you ever had like kind of a tough audience member, like a problem?
Adversary.
Yes, exactly. someone that just seems like they're out to pick it apart and go after you.
Not quite nemesis, but adversary.
Yeah.
I
Go ahead,
think
Al.
in general, people want you to be successful. I had one situation where I had a BA on a product demo that was a little combative, like questioning, well, that's not what that's supposed to do. And it was frequent. It was frustrating. Until it got to the point where we had to say, well, these requirements came from you. This is where this started. So if we're not right here, we'll be happy to fix it. But, you don't want to dunk on anybody during a demo. I think that was
right
in my entire career of doing these things. That only happened on one project.
Yeah.
And I probably shouldn't have called it out as their own requirement that we represented in the demo, but
they brought you there.
That was a lesson learned.
They brought you there, though. They took you to that place.
But still.
But I don't think any of us would want to go back to like early product demos that we've like you said, we learn. We get better over time.
Yeah, no client wants to hear that their own people are bringing them down the wrong, right? Your
Never
job,
call the baby ugly.
Part of our job is to make their own babies all pretty, right?
Yep.
Put as much lipstick and mascara on the baby as you want to, and send it to a dance competition, and maybe get a little too involved. And
wait,
this
what are we talking about?
Going, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I think this turned into Honey Boo Boo.
So maybe some final thoughts on demoing. I'll start because I have one right in my head. I don't want to lose it. If you're doing a presentation and you have a demo that's a part of that presentation, make sure you have a backup plan, especially if you're in a place where you don't control things. Like, well, my demo relies on an internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at a conference with 5,000 people, and they're all using the same Wi-Fi. Maybe I should have some slides that I can show as a backup. Al just needs a whiteboard, but some way of, okay, what's my backup plan? Expect that things might go wrong despite all your efforts to avoid them. And then roll with the punches. That's my final thought. I'm not going to shut it down yet. Please share yours, podcasters.
I will do mine. I'd say there's two things, one big and one small. The big one is that treat product demos as a way to continue building the relationship between your development team and your stakeholders. That's how you get the trust. That's how you get information. That's how you create a better product. That's how they will continue to come to you with, hey, can you do this for me? So treat it as this is just, you're meeting, it's like meeting a friend for coffee every couple weeks or couple months. Like, this is our check-in to maintain this relationship and build it further. The little thing is, don't wave your mouse around frantically. Just, you can highlight something or just start a thing, but if you're answering a question, don't gesture wildly with your keyboard or mouse, because that's a guaranteed way to distract everyone.
So guilty of that. I've been.
Oh, yeah. I have been in the past too. I totally, yeah. Yeah.
Could you stop doing that? Because, it's really hard to listen to you.
And if it's being recorded, then there's going to be potentially a delay between the audio and wherever your mouse is on just don't.
That brings up just a quick, go slow.
Yep.
Let people allow for time for people to absorb things and respond with questions. Peter, any final thoughts?
Yeah, a demo is important. Always do one, even if it's short. Even if if you don't feel like you have anything to show, try to get a demo going for every sprint. It's super easy in the UI world to have something to demo. It's a little bit more difficult in the sort of the back end. Or we did this API, and it was API-ish, and it was very cool. But it still helps everybody on the team to see that progress is being made, and we did things this sprint, and this is what we accomplished. So always do a demo.
Yeah, you don't want to find out way, way, way down the road that you missed a few big things that will cost you significant time and rework. Chad Jutner.
I'm going to say what Elle said, but dumber. I think probably. It's really your opportunity to have a conversation with people that are sponsoring your project that you normally wouldn't. It's your opportunity as a dev team, as an agile team, to have a very direct conversation with all of your stakeholders, with the people that are paying your bill. So use it to the best that you can. Like, communicate honestly about where you're at. Don't ever, show a screen with mocked data without saying, "Hey, I'm mocking up this." Right? We don't have it wired up yet. It's make
looks like we're
sure,
ready for production next week, right?
Exactly. Like, make darn sure that everybody understands what you're showing, what state it's in. Have a conversation with them, and also, if you're really, really nervous about it, do a shot of Fireball 15 minutes before, because then it hits you about 10 minutes into the demo, and the rest of the demo will go a lot easier.
Insert liability disclaimer here. But no, I don't think that was dumbing it down, Chad. You were iterating on the same thought. You're improving on it.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Awesome. And I think with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.